let me bring in Professor Swaran Singh. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Your views, I wanted to understand from you. You know, Mr. Ashok Kantha told us that it's probably because he does not. There were external reasons for Xi Jinping to stay put in China, largely because he did not want to come to India, given the problem that we have across the LSE, and given the uncomfortable questions he was going to be faced with from his Western counterparts. But Dr. Shinming Shin from Taiwan, he tells us that there are domestic reasons that are keeping Xi Jinping in within China and not allowing him to venture out, come to the G20 summit in New Delhi. As according to you, where does the truth lie? Somewhere in between, perhaps.
Thank you, Aditi, for having me on your program, and apologies for slightly joining late compared to my other esteemed colleagues. I think it would have been easier if a spokesperson of Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing could have, just said a line clarifying why it is that President Xi Jinping is not able to join the G20 summit in New Delhi. And that would have set the record straight and not allowed the situation where now we are noticing multiple kinds of speculations being made, analysis being made at various levels. To begin with, at domestic level, people are saying, first of all, there have been certain amount of uncertainty, tensions at the top leadership. We know that recently the foreign minister was suddenly sacked, and there are all kinds of news about him since then. There's also, all kind of speculations about President Xi's health or his sense of his security, and sometimes that is seen as an explanation as to why President Xi Jinping has not been traveling very frequently for last 3+ years now. Or people even talking of the economic crisis, the meltdown in the real estate sort of sector in China particularly. And in that sense, a lot of domestic angles are being put into explaining why Xi Jinping didn't come to New Delhi. Then, of course, at second level, there are bilateral relations of China which are in certain difficulty now. For a long time, we know that China and United States have had enormous amount of difficulty, so much so that China is now formally in several documents described by United States as a country that not just has intention but also capability to replace United States leadership in Asia Pacific, or seen as a systemic competitor, and so on. And several other allies of United States have put documents of similar kind. And of course, with India again, tensions for over last 3+ years and continued, and there was a lot of expectations raised that maybe if he's visiting New Delhi for G20 summit, there could be some kind of way of finding some resolution on the border. And comparisons were made to 2017 Xiamen summit, when Indian Prime Minister was to go there to attend the summit meeting, or at the level of international global order. That's a third level where speculations are being made as to how it is that President Xi Jinping can go to Moscow. In fact, he is again expected to go to Moscow and also attend the BRICS summit, where again there is a certain amount of bonhomie with India, which is apparently a country with which he has difficulties. They have consensus in adding new members. Does it indicate a certain preference that Xi now wants to indicate that in his sense of the emerging world order, BRICS, which is now from 5 to 11 and potentially many more, we know 43 countries want to join BRICS, is the kind of economic grouping that President Xi and President Putin would like to promote, compared to working with the G20, where large number of countries, United States and its friends and allies, have problems with China and Russia. So is that a kind of an indication that what kind of global order President Xi is trying to promote and or insinuate or sort of make the world understand his preferences? So these are all multiple speculations, and I'm sure truth lies somewhere in one of these or multiple of these explanations. In fact, most decisions we make are driven by multiple factors. There's never a single factor or single data point leading to a decision making. So, these speculations continue, but let me make my very quick last point. China is the second largest economy of the world. And the fact that so many speculations of different experts at different levels are being made makes one point very clear, that absence of President Xi does make difference to the summit meeting. And I think that is something that is not easily contestable. And that is how we are discussing this. Again, I hope we'll find some explanation which is more convincing at end of the discussion today.
Absolutely. Let me just Professor Swaran Singh, my question to you is about the BRICS summit, which Xi Jinping did attend, the G20, which he does not attend. The BRICS, and with the expansion of the BRICS now from 5 to 11 countries, China is clearly trying to expand the BRIC, become the voice of the global south. Do you believe that, given the kind of countries that have got admission in BRICS now, do you believe that China perhaps is looking to make BRICS more China-centric than ever before? Till now, it was not so China-centric, but suddenly, with the addition of these new states, do you believe that's his intention?
Aditi, it is not easy to imagine that if BRICS expand and add new members, that they will not be friends of China. 128 countries around the world have China as their largest trading partner. So if you start looking for countries who may be interested in joining BRICS but are not friendly to Beijing, it may not be easy, it may not be possible, they may not be even willing to join BRICS first of all. So it is something that I take for given that countries that are going to join BRICS will have stronger relations with China. The difference will be that over a period of time, we have seen China from the beginning actually, raising this whole issue of expanding BRICS because their economy was growing. They are going to have bigger trade and investments around the world. They want to use BRICS as a platform to reinforce that kind of partnerships of China with several other countries. Russia has lately become much more interested because of Ukraine crisis and its isolation because of Western sanctions. For them, SCO or BRICS is the most interesting platform. So they are also fine, to see that more expansion of BRICS nations happens. India, likewise, now in last 5-7 years has moved from 10th to 5th largest economy, potentially 3rd largest economy, has become more comfortable in ensuring that more countries are able to join. And now, look at the countries that have joined. 60% of global energy suppliers are now in BRICS. And that is a unique USP that now BRICS holds. And of course, they are most of them seen either as even small, but emerging, and their growth rates are faster. And they're also seen as hubs in their own region in terms of pushing for regional development. So there are multiple sort of yardsticks, criterion, how new countries are picked up. But there is no doubt that the way consensus could be built to take 6 more members, the global media, in fact, the Western media, on the very first day had sort of ruled out any expansion because they said this was to happen in plenary session, and if it has not happened, it is not going to happen. Even the other media was talking of 3 countries, maximum 5 countries, and ultimately 6 new members were joined. So consensus could work in that direction. So that could be one reason why China feels more comfortable in promoting and being in BRICS, because it has enormous influence in the running of the affairs in that sense. But that again is further indicating towards the continuing polarization, geopolitical polarization of US and allies being on one side, China, Russia and some other countries being on the other. India's task will be to ensure how it manages the relationship with both Western nations and China and Russia. I think one point I must add here is, of course, it doesn't make huge difference in terms of the outcomes of G20 Summit final declaration, because I agree with Ambassador Kantha, it is a country position. Countries decide what position they will take on certain issues. But Ambassador Kantha also fully understands so much, in fact, happens in all multilateral gatherings on the sidelines. Ambassadors spend lifetime in contributing in that direction, where sidelines are more significant and more things happen in that. India playing a role in some kind of mitigation of Ukraine crisis. Just as you remember the foreign ministers meeting where Lavrov had sat next to US Secretary of State. And in that sense, that kind of equation, if was possible that Joe Biden and Putin or Xi Jinping were in the same room, potentially even smiling at each other, holding a bilateral, that kind of breakthrough that India could have played at the global level using G20 as a platform. Now that will be completely amiss because Putin and Xi are not here. And
Not there.
finally, let me quickly in 10 seconds also mention the fact that I arrived in this meeting a couple of minutes late also allowed me to see that Amitabh Kant has just an hour ago addressed media showing enormous confidence that final declaration is ready and only leaders have to put their stamp on it. Which means in all multilateral meetings, again, Ambassador Kantha knows it so much better than I do. In all multilateral meetings, final declarations do get those tensions and uncertainties until very last minute. It's nothing new. So it could be that, in the end, some outcome could still be possible, though at this stage, everyone is saying there are enormous differences, particularly Russia and China are not agreeing to something that Western nations want to put in, or vice versa. So in that sense, if not final declaration, maybe some kind of a statement, maybe joint action plan of some kind. Fundamentally, G20 is an organization for economic issues, managing macroeconomics. So their priority has to be on climate finance, on inclusive growth, accelerated sustainable development growth, green development, technology transfers. Maybe some kind of action plan is possible on some of these issues. So we don't know what kind of final declaration or final outcome is going to come out of this meeting. There are so many possibilities, and these uncertainties are very normal in such multilateral meetings, particularly when you have these situations where geopolitics is pushing east and west apart, but also geoeconomics is pulling north and south closer. So there are both positive and negative trends that we are noticing at this stage. The larger picture, whether it is totally positive, more positive, less positive, is something we'll know by Sunday evening.
We'll know by Sunday, absolutely. And as John Kirk.
Allow me, if you allow me 30 seconds, I think both organizations have their own USP. BRICS is involving countries that do not have Ukraine crisis as a sort of spanner. They don't have any such geopolitical tensions. Second, they are also emerging economies with much better growth rates, much better enthusiasm
And
compared
shared
to
interest in
G7,
the and shared
countries.
interest.
G7 countries are not showing any growth rates anymore. So both have their own USP. G20 is the biggest economies together, but I think BRICS also is looking at itself as emerging economies, with trendsetters for future growth rates and so on. So, I agree with Mr. Kantha. Chinese definitely feel much comfortable with BRICS because they're the masters in BRICS in some sense. They're economy larger than the rest of the economies put together. So that is not how it is in G20, and there are political issues in G20. So comfort levels are very different. But I assume China, if it has to stay as a world leader or emerge as world leader, it has to engage both of these and cannot choose one of these. And I think that is a bad signal, wrong signal, if that is the signal she is sending from attending BRICS and not attending G20.
Yeah, in fact, like India's in G20, India is equally interested in BRICS, and I think given the fact that that Prime Minister Modi talks about Vasudev Kutumbakam, and that is our motto, not just for G20, but our engagement with the world. I think right now engagement is the way forward for every nation out there. But